Hi, I'm Molly of Maison and I'm here today with
Katelyn from Field in Hand.
Katelyn's going to build an arrangement for us, and I'm so excited to get started.
We've got all of our materials here, a blank slate. I think we're ready to go.
Okay. So as you craft this beautiful arrangement, can you take us back to the moment when you kind of realized that you wanted to start your own business?
Yeah, so it's a long answer to this one.
I'll sit down.
Yeah, so I think it started more so long ago with a desire to work with my hands. So it definitely didn't start with the flowers necessarily. I feel like I've always just kind of been interested in working with my hands, learning things, learning new skills and whatnot. And then I got married in 2016 and did the flowers for my own wedding to save money, as a young person does. And I really enjoyed that process. I also had a job at the time, or shortly after, where I was kind of in charge of running some events.
Best way to learn, right?
For that, yeah. So got a lot of practice, got random good feedback about that. And then, yeah, long story short, got connected with a local florist in the area and got to help with their setup and teardown for their events, and got to see their process and learned a lot from them until it got to the point where I was like, I feel like I can do this myself.
Yeah.
And then I did. So that's the origin story.
Yeah, so tell me about how you're building this bouquet right now. I see you kind of layering in the hydrangeas with a little bit of greenery.
Yeah, so flowers over here. So yeah, obviously the greenery, these heavy hydrangea, and so we're kind of just building the base. So thinking about the weight of that different flowers give. So hydrangea obviously are big and heavy, so sometimes they can be kind of tall in an arrangement, but oftentimes they serve as a kind of just like a base, a firm foundation, if you will, along with the greenery for that. So we're just kind of making it up as we go. I'm not really paying attention, so if I have to edit along the way, that's part of the process too. Sometimes you got to make some changes if you don't like it.
A creative being creative,
There
right?
you go.
So tell me a little bit about the flowers that you have in the bucket, right? Like, what do we have over there?
Yes, we've got these lovely pink hydrangea. We've got this variegated pittosporum. So pittosporum also comes in a couple different other varieties. The regular is just plain green. The variegated is with the white kind of mixed in as well. I use that one a lot. We've got these really pretty blue delphinium. These are the line flowers that we're working with today. So these will give kind of height and more dimension. And then we've got some regular and regular roses and white spray roses. And then, of course, we have our little alien.
I love these guys.
Bells of Ireland.
Yeah, Bells of Ireland. I don't know what they are, but they're always so whimsical.
They're aliens. Yeah. So we'll see what we get into with that.
Perfect. So flowers, obviously, for many people, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching this, hold a lot of meaning, right? And so could you share what flowers symbolize to you personally, and how that has kind of influenced your journey as a florist and what you choose in your arrangements?
Personally, I don't have any specific associations with any like singular flowers for any like family or sentimental reasons, but a lot of people that I work with do, and I love that. I think that my appreciation for that part is kind of twofold. So my dad's family had a family business. They had a greenhouse. So for many years, and as I was growing up, that business was open. And so I always like to say that like the flowers are in my blood.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, during family gatherings, it's always fun to chat with like my uncles or my grandpa and be like, I work with this flower, and they're like, oh, I used to grow that flower. It's just fun naming flowers back and forth and being like, we both know what this flower is, and we use it in different ways, but that's always like a fun, just kind of personal bonding. Yeah. But also in terms of other people and their association with flowers, so many people will plan their weddings and look for flowers that are super trendy or like in style or like classic. I want this to feel classic or timeless with like white and greenery. And those things are going to look beautiful. There's they're gonna look pretty, but they're also really impersonal.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's like specific to these people with just like these flowers that they want to look timeless and not dated when they look back in pictures. And so my whole thing is really encouraging people to find an aesthetic or design, or just tell me things that are special or unique about them and their relationship, so we can tie that into the flowers. From my own wedding, one of my favorite things that I heard from a friend afterwards, she was like, oh, this feels like this is so you. Like, this aesthetic is so you.
Which is the best compliment you can receive.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when people go to a wedding, they go to celebrate their friends and their family. And 100%. So I think the more you can kind of weave yourself and your story and your personality into the aesthetic and the design of your event, like the greater the celebration is going to be, because people are there to celebrate you, so why not make it about you as much as you can.
Well, and I can speak to this a little bit because Katelyn did the flowers for my wedding. I had a great relationship with my papa, so my grandfather.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And so he unfortunately was not alive for my wedding, but he grew sunflowers. And so as even like a toddler, he started them from seed. And each year they'd get taller and taller and taller. And so by the time I was in high school, you know, junior year, they were as tall as our house. And I have a picture of me standing on his truck bed with a stalk of sunflowers and him standing on the ground with one, and they're towering over both of us. And so Katelyn worked in sunflowers to my arrangements because I didn't want them to be, we got married in September, I didn't want it to be too fall oriented, you know, in the fact that sunflowers were everywhere, but I definitely wanted him to be present. And I still fondly remember you did a floral arch for us at our ceremony, and I remember we were saying our vows and I looked up and I saw one of the sunflowers, like, and its face was like perfectly oriented towards like where I was standing. And that was just like, not only was it a floral moment, but I just felt like it was just a moment where I'm like, okay, he's here. Like, he couldn't be here personally, but this was just like that little sign, that little dusting.
And so while I don't have any of those specific like flower associations, I love that so many other people do, and then I get to help kind of facilitate that. Yeah,
it's really, really beautiful. So I guess tell me a little bit about your movement towards sustainability. I know that you have kind of stepped away from floral foam, and I know you use a lot of wire and things. So I guess tell me more about that, because I probably, like many people, don't know the environmental impact, and you're working with this every day.
So I have never used it actually as a part of my business, but I have freelanced for other florists that have, and just kind of, there's more and more different options. So I've, you know, as the algorithm does, I have learned a lot about those different options and like just, the impacts of foam. So obviously, environmentally, it's a plastic-based product. It'll ultimately never really decompose or take however long. And it's also just super chemically, full of chemicals. So it's not great for the people that are working with it also. It is super easy to work with. It makes designing really easy. But you know what?
It's a good challenge.
Fun. It's also fun, to have a challenge and to like, there are other options. And so if it takes a little bit more time or a little bit more energy to kind of figure it out, that's something that I enjoy having as a part of my business. And then it's also, that's important to certain people, and those certain people happen to be one aspect of my ideal client base. So it's fun to kind of have that as a part, as like a selling point too for clients.
Okay. So as you're building this arrangement, you said we're starting low, we're kind of weightier on the bottom, then you have your taller pieces to kind of add some height. Tell me a little bit more about this kind of in-between process as you're stuffing these in.
So I like to think about, the weight, the height, and then kind of movement as well. So these bells of Ireland that I'm adding now have a lot of funky movement to them, which we're just kind of embracing here. Yeah, it's also really interesting designing without like a real plan while being watched. So we're just kind of seeing where we're going. But yeah, so we're adding the height with the delphinium, kind of going out on the sides a little bit, balancing with the roses and hydrangea, and then just getting a little funky here with the
well, the Lazy Susan is also imperative, right? So
unless you're going to put it on like an entry table or like a shelf where it is only going to be one-sided. But for a traditional centerpiece, you want to make sure from all the sides.
That's my downfall when I take floral classes. Yeah. I always have a back, even if it's in the center of a table.
Yes.
So amidst the vast array of kind of floral species, some here on the table, do you have any particular favorites that you happen to be drawn to in arrangements for a variety of different reasons?
The classic asking a florist for your favorite flower question.
It's like asking a designer, what's your favorite color?
Different answer every single time someone asks me this. We talked about the movement of different flowers. Currently, my favorite flower to work with is a butterfly ranunculus. So a lot of people are familiar with like the more traditional like Cluny ranunculus, which are just the round. Not just the round, they're very beautiful. And
layered.
Round, tons of petals, super like layered petals. Ranunculus, but their cousin, I guess, the butterfly ranunculus is...
The cooler cousin?
Yeah, in my opinion. They are... Okay, let me just put that down for a second so I can describe this flower. It is... Oftentimes there's a lot more... like flower heads on each stem, so it's kind of like a spray, like 3 or 4 per stem, and this is maybe the first time that I'm actually thinking about it. They're kind of like a butterfly. They're kind of like very airy and wispy, very thin petals, maybe like 5 or 7 petals, like instead of like the millions that are in a regular ranunculus. They actually are related to those little yellow buttercup flowers that you see outside. So they look more like that than like the regular ranunculus, but they just they're so bouncy. Like if you see people with like a bouquet, sometimes like they'll shake it a little bit and like the flowers are very dancey and airy. They just add like a lightness to a lot of arrangements, which is why I really like them. And they also come in a lot of really pretty colors too.
I'm gonna have to Google that, but they sound beautiful.
They are.
So as you can see, we're kind of wrapping up this beautiful arrangement, and I want Katelyn to tell us a little bit more about the whimsical genius into this arrangement on the table.
Yeah, so this is what I like to call a leftovers arrangement. When I have a bunch of leftover flowers after an event, just kind of put them together and see what happens. But yeah, this is kind of like a very spring explosion with the pale greenery and the light pink and blue. But yeah, that's one we just kind of had fun with. Yeah, we got some funky movement. I feel like it just is what it is.
She is her, you know, in all of her glory.
I'll let her speak for herself. Did you have a mic? Give this girl a mic.
Give this girl a mic drop.
But I do also have a different palette. Yeah. Just some random leftovers we can play with just while we...
Yeah, let's do it. I'll move this one over here.
We'll work more with a monochromatic moment here.
So as we change color palettes here, right, going from kind of sweet and springy to this kind of more pops of color and maybe some tall greenery, imagining an event that you haven't done yet potentially that's completely new with a unique color palette, what hues and kind of combinations would you love to experiment with that you haven't had the chance to use yet for an event?
Yeah. Track with me here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of pretty flowers that come in some very pretty shades of brown.
Brown?
Brown, yes. But we're talking Lysianthus, we're talking sweet pea, irises. These browns are they're soft and they lean kind of lavender or like lean kind of like mauve.
Speaking my language now.
Yeah, so actually now that we're working with sort of like a monochromatic color palette, I've been really into kind of the color blocking aesthetic. So kind of playing with that brown base, maybe even popping in some dried flowers for some texture.
Yeah.
yeah, that even like, yeah, brown that kind of lightens up into some cream even. Playing with that color block with kind of like those little hints at softer pastels. I don't know what the event would be. I don't know if it would be a wedding. I don't know what it would be, but if you have an event that requires brown flowers,
Yes.
hit me up.
It sounds super moody though. I like it.
Yeah,
like soft,
yeah. And I don't think I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Maybe people are scared. They're too scared to do it. Not
I
me.
see it. I do see it more in interiors, actually. I'm seeing a lot of kind of monochromatic interiors, kind of color drenching, right?
Yeah.
Where you're painting the trim, you're painting the walls, the ceiling gets painted.
Yes.
And wallpaper too. But a lot of people are kind of trying to enhance paint in a way to kind of save money, right? Wallpaper can be expensive and it can be sometimes a hassle to install. So painting is just kind of simpler all the way around. But what I've been loving recently is the trend with like cranberry and like raspberry tones. The like deeper, kind of like there's a few paint colors like sommelier, which is like this deep like Merlot or like Cabernet Sauvignon kind of color, you know? And those are super pretty. So as you're describing this event, I almost like, you know, if I was an event planner, I would be throwing in these kind of cranberry tones, kind of adding that little bit of richness to just further along those brown tones.
Well, that's the thing too. I feel like gone are the days when you plan an event and you go to your florist or your planner and you're like, my colors are blue and yellow, and like everything has to be blue or yellow. Now I feel like people are embracing more of like maybe blue and yellow and like all the different tones that connect them to like round out the color palette. So it's not just like 2 or 3 colors, it's endless colors that like all play together.
That's a great observation. I hadn't thought about it like that, but you're right.
I'm not sad about it.
Gone are the days of the Pinterest boards from like the early 2000s, and we've come a long way.
Yes. Got one more here.
I love the movement in this one too.
Yeah.
The like softness of it is really fun.
These are Alstroemeria, and I actually, up until last week, kind of hated these flowers and literally never ever bought them. But then I bought them for something because the color was right. They also come in a lot of colors, and I was like, they're not so bad.
I know. I loved them in high school so much so that I always had them in like my corsage and like boutonniere for prom, which is not to age these. I love these for many occasions.
Well, they're a very popular grocery store flower, which I think is part of my prejudice against them. But they last like literally forever.
You're too common.
They last forever, which is a big plus sometimes. But
oh, it's so pretty.
Here she is.
Yay.
You know what? Let's give you one more. And this greenery, this is Italian ruscus, and it has these little orange berries on it, which is perfect for this. Pop you right here.
Oh, just the height it needed, right there.
Wrong spot. Okay, there we go.
Ta-da!
All right.
All right, good job.
Thanks. Well, now that my work is done, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. How, kind of looking at these specific arrangements or just in general, how might you go about using florals in an interior design setting?
Yes, that's a great question. So floral arrangements are a huge part of interior design, whether it's just day-to-day, enhancing your mood, enhancing the beauty of a space, and kind of doing a floral subscription, or, you know, kind of making your own arrangements from the flowers in your yard. Like, that is something that is super important. I love texture and adding this kind of element of color into a space. You know, something like this might be a little bit higher and perfect for a coffee table as a pop of color. And something like this is obviously perfect because it's a little bit larger, it's kind of sprawling, you know, maybe a middle of an entry table. So when you walk in the front door, your guests are kind of greeted with this beautiful arrangement. I think flowers really add a lot to a space. Like I said, color, texture, they smell good. So kind of like embracing your senses, right? You want to touch them, you want to feel them, you want to smell them, you want to see them. And so a lot of times flower arrangements are used in interior photography. And so you don't really do a photo shoot without fresh flowers. It's kind of like a faux pas if you don't. What's been really popular lately is people literally going out into the backyard and like cutting off a branch and putting that in a big vessel, you know, on top of a table, which is that kind of like modern aesthetic that we're seeing a lot of. I personally, there's a time and a place for that, and I do love it in a lot of interiors, but I'm always gravitating towards something that has multiple different types of flowers to kind of, again, add that dimension to not only the floral arrangement, but to the room as well. Every time I'm flipping through a magazine or doom scrolling on Instagram, you know, I'm seeing these beautiful arrangements in these high-end rooms. And I think the room wouldn't be where it's at without the floral arrangements in the photo, the way that it's shot and the way that the angle kind of captures the space.
Yeah, going back to like talking about just like, the sentimentality and how flowers make you feel. I feel like it's one of the things that you don't realize. Oh, we'll say the clients, professionals always know, but the clients might not realize that it's missing if it's not there, but then the impact that it has and the feelings that you get when it is there makes a world of difference.
Well, and a modern space can feel a little bit sterile sometimes. Like even the best designed modern spaces still kind of need that warmth. And sometimes people do that in textures with pillows and blankets and kind of those big chunky woven things. But I really think when you have a long expanse of marble or stone or even wood, something in the middle like this is really where it's at.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's all she wrote. So I recently was actually looking at some studies that have shown that the interior air quality, you know, mood benefits, there's actually a lot of things that can come from having just an arrangement of fresh flowers in your home and kind of bringing nature in, right? And so the studies have shown that having a fresh cut flowers, arrangements on your table, and then even going to work, you can be nicer to your coworkers, you know, your mood is overall boosted. I know, like, give me some of that. And so buy more flowers, but I think that, you know, it is true. You see something beautiful and you can't like be mad. I don't know. It's just something that you kind of stop and kind of admire. And also just taking time, you know, that obviously there are more studies out there that say you need to spend more time in nature and at least 30 minutes a day. And it's kind of like, if you can't do that for yourself, at least put something fresh in your house, like plants for indoor air quality and some type of greenery and arrangement to kind of really just give yourself that moment of rest and just take a deep breath, let it out, and admire the beautiful flowers in your home.
There's a reason why people buy sympathy flowers or flowers for people that they love or when they're happy or when they're sad. There's a reason why flowers are always alongside those different moments.
Yeah, moments in life, flowers are always right there too.
Yeah.
Another benefit, I think, is working with your hands. So like you mentioned earlier, you know, having fresh cut flowers, whether they're from a florist, which is one way to do it in an absolutely perfect way in my mind. But a lot of people are kind of have that green thumb at home, right? So they might have some of these flowers out in their garden that they want to snip, or maybe one broke and they want to bring it in and put it in a little bud vase. And so I think working with your hands and kind of having that pride over something, the same thing that you get out of making these arrangements to share with people, is something that's also kind of a mood boost in someone's own home that they can do to kind of help them emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of the things to kind of create something and say, hey, I kept that alive. Like, that's a pretty big deal.
Or I grew this outside and I grew it to bring beauty into my home and just keep that cycle going. And it's a very rewarding process for sure.
Yay, flowers! I don't know.